When Jesus says He's the Son of God, He doesn't mean He just came into existence. He doesn't mean He was just born in Bethlehem and prior to that He didn't exist. He doesn't mean anything about origins. He is using it in the classic Jewish sense where son means equal to or one with. And when He says He's the Son of God, He means He's equal to God or one with God. That is, He is of the same essence, the same nature, the same character, the same rights, the same privileges as God Himself. And so that is the point. And that's why when Jesus said He is the Son of God, the Jews immediately said, He has made Himself equal to God. They completely understood that. Completely understood it. He was claiming to be equal with God, John 5:18 and John 10:33. Now, there are a couple of other terms that can enrich our understanding of this. John calls Jesus 5 times the only begotten Son of God. And we might ask the question, well, that does bring in begetting, doesn't it? Doesn't that tell us that there wasn't a Son of God and then He was begotten by Mary and then He came into existence? Isn't that what that means, the only begotten? Well, let me answer that. The term only begotten in the Greek, monogenes, genao to be born, and mono, only. The only begotten can refer to an only child. I mean, you could use that to refer to somebody who had an only child, the only begotten child. But again, in the Jewish context of the full meaning of monogenes, it didn't have anything to do with the fact that this is the only child that was born to a couple. It had to do with the fact that this was a title given to a son who had been chosen by his father to receive the full inheritance. It's the same as the word prototokos, which Paul uses a lot, which we often translate firstborn. And it doesn't mean the firstborn in time chronologically. It means of all that have been born, the first. And again, monogenes, of all that have been born, this one alone is the chosen to receive the inheritance. The one chosen for privilege. I can illustrate that. Hebrews 11:17. You don't need to look it up. Hebrews 11:17. Isaac. Now, was Isaac Abraham's first son? Who was? Ishmael. So Isaac was not his only begotten son in the sense that he had no other sons. But Hebrews 11:17, Isaac is referred to as Abraham's monogene, his only begotten. Now he had another son, an older brother, half-brother, that was not Abraham's only son, but he was Abraham's monogene, which means he was the choice son to receive the covenant and receive the inheritance.
Jeremiah 9, verse 23. Thus says the Lord, let not a wise man boast of his wisdom, and let not the mighty man boast of his might. Let not a rich man boast of his riches, but let him who boasts boast of this, that he understands and knows me, that I am the Lord, who exercises loving kindness, justice, and righteousness on earth. For I delight in these things, declares the Lord. Back to verse 24, but let him who boasts boast of this, that he understands and knows me. This is not the opinion of a man regarding what is essential. If you were to talk to a numerous amount of men, you would get a numerous amount of suggestions with regard to what is essential. Some would say, of course, your health. Others would say insurance, good benefits at work. Others would say people around you that love you. You can find all manner of men speaking today on what is essential to the human existence. And all of them are wrong. Except for those who say, the essential. Not just something, not just a good thing, not just part of what you may need to know. No, the essential of life is to know and understand God. There is nothing above that. There is nothing beside that. We can even say there's nothing below it because there's no comparison. It is to know God. Now we need to step back here in the context of our contemporary Christianity and say that means more than understanding a few principles about the way you ought to live. This is not about teaching ourselves wisdom so that we can have our best life now. This is about knowing God. We were created to know God and to glory in Him and to draw our life from Him. And that's what he is getting to right here. Thus says the Lord. The essential of life is the knowledge of God.
So when John writes, this is the only begotten Son of God, the Jews know exactly what he's saying. They're claiming that this is one who is equal with God, has the very essence of God. He is a Son of God. Not only that, he is the select and chosen Son of God who has been given the full inheritance of God. That is to say, he has all the nature of God, he has all the rights of God, he has all the power of God, he has all the privileges of God. That was the claim Jesus made, and that is what they constituted as blasphemy, and it was for that that they executed him, because they refused to believe, though it was in fact true. Let me show you this, just briefly. Psalm 2. I want to point this out to you because I think it's an important thing to note. Jesus is the eternal Son of God. He's the Son by eternal nature and privilege and name and inheritance. But I want you to notice how this is indicated to us in Psalm 2. He said to me, "Thou art my Son," verse 7. God says to the second member of the Trinity, God the Son, "Thou art my Son. Today I have begotten thee." Verse 8, "Ask of me, and I'll give the nations as your inheritance." There again, you see, he is identified as a son, as evidenced by the fact that he is given the inheritance. Sonship is connected with inheritance. It's not an issue of origins, because there was never an origin of Jesus, was there? Not the eternal Son of God. There was an origin of the man Jesus born to Mary. But the eternal Son of God had no origin. He is eternal. He always was. He even said, before Abraham was, I am. There never was a time when the second member of the Trinity, God the Son, didn't exist. There never was a time when he was begotten in the sense that he didn't exist and then he came into existence. Rather, his sonship is not so much connected with him coming into existence as it is with receiving the inheritance. Interestingly enough, also in Hebrews 1, that same passage is quoted. Psalm 2 is quoted in Hebrews 1. And it says, "Thou art my Son, today I've begotten thee," in verse 5. "And I'll be a father to him, and he'll be a son to me." And then immediately he says, when he brings the firstborn into the world, he says, "Let all the angels of God worship him." And then in verse 8, he says to the Son, "Your throne, O God, is forever and ever, and the righteous scepter is the scepter of your kingdom." In other words, again, sonship is associated. It's associated with rank. It's associated with rule. It's associated with inheritance. Back in verse 4, he has inherited a more excellent name. It's about his inheritance, about his rule, about his sovereignty. So that both in Psalm 2 and in Hebrews 1, the emphasis is, listen to this word, on enthronement. The assumption of enthronement and authority. That's what identifies a son. He is a son because he is equal to God. He is the only begotten and the firstborn because he is the one who will receive all the inheritance. Because he is God, he will possess all that belongs to God.